The following nightmare was inspired by true events. In 1984, a group of Wagner High School students went for a weekend of camping in Sapang Bato Forest, right outside Clark Air Force Base, Philippines. Sadly, only 11 of the 12 students returned. 20 years later, Bobby Hooper resurfaced, or so the story goes. This event was recounted by Bobby Hooper's close friend, Dante Pee-wee Richmond, during an interview with an independent news crew. Pee-wee had been present during the weekend when Bobby went missing and was the one who alerted the chaperones about his disappearance. I'm not even sure where to begin, but I want to share everything exactly as it happened. People have called me a liar, a killer, just about every name you can imagine. But you know what? I've reached a point where I don't really care anymore. I just have to tell the story and get this off my chest. I'm fully aware of what unfolded that night and what I witnessed 2 decades later. We got to Sapang Bato Forest in the late afternoon, towards the end of June. It was right after school, and I can vividly recall how hot and humid the day was. Back then, we were just high school freshmen, and the idea of camping beyond the confines of the base in the Philippines was completely new to us. The anticipation was through the roof as the Wagner High School faculty organized a camping trip to Sapang Bato Forest for our school's summer break. The interesting part was that the town of Sapang Bato had long been off limits for active-duty military, retirees, and their families. But surprisingly, just a month before our excursion, this ban was lifted. The moment we got there, we wasted no time. We set up our campsite and got our tents pitched. Lucky for us, it was just a quick 5-minute walk to the Abacan River. We were excited. We couldn't wait to dive into the water for a swim and perhaps try our luck with some fishing and exploring. Bobby and I ended up sharing a tent since we weren't allowed to bunk with the girls, much to our disappointment. The chaperones had their own tent. We were tasked with helping Donna and Danica, or the Double Ds as we jokingly called them, set up their tent. It was a bit of a nuisance, truth be told, but once we were finished with that, we wasted no time. We grabbed our swimming trunks and fishing poles and made a beeline for the river. Our fishing experience was a failure. We didn't catch a thing. Still, our time was well spent with plenty of swimming and exploring. Things took a peculiar turn as we were sprinting toward the river. Bobby tripped over a huge ant mound, obliterating it in the process. I ended up chuckling at his expense. As the daylight began to fade around 7 p.m., we made our way back to camp. While our dinner prospects in terms of fish were looking slim, the chaperones had a spread of burgers, hot dogs, and potato salad waiting for us, something we definitely approved of. After dinner, we gathered around the crackling fire, toasting marshmallows and telling ghost stories. It's a bit fuzzy, but at some point we called it a night. The full moon hung high, casting an eerie glow. I entered our tent to find Bobby already sound asleep, mouth wide open, snoring. I had to chuckle when I aimed my flashlight his way, revealing a constellation of red, raised bumps dotting his face. I took a deep breath as I laid down on my soft sleeping bag. I fell asleep quickly. I was still in a dreamlike state when Bobby woke me up, unzipping the tent to go to the bathroom. I chuckled when I told him not to pee on any ant mounds and quickly passed out. I don't know when it started, but I kept waking up to what I can only describe as pebbles hitting the side of the tent. Finally, I sat up and called out to Bobby. I heard nothing. I told him to quit messing around and come back to the tent. I called several times. No response. The hair on the back of my neck stood up on end. Something felt wrong. I decided to leave the tent to find him. Equipped with my flashlight, I ventured outside the tent. Almost instantly, a sensation of being observed washed over me. Once more, the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, and shivers cascaded up and down my spine. "Bobby, cut it out! This isn't a joke! Where are you?" I cried out. I searched the area around the tent, but Bobby was nowhere to be seen. Feeling a mix of worry and frustration, I walked towards the woods and called out his name again, this time raising my voice. Still, there was no reply. Panic started to creep in, and I knew I had to act. I made up my mind to wake up chaperones and let them know what was going on. When the chaperones emerged from their tents, a sense of urgency filled the air. They roused the rest of the students from their sleep, swiftly conducted a head count, and promptly rallied everyone to assist in locating Bobby. Urgent calls for Bobby echoed through the night, but as before there was no response, just an unsettling silence. Mr. Harmadink, the lead chaperone, took a moment to brief us. He explained that each chaperone would team up with 2 or 3 of us, forming search groups that would spread out to cover more ground in the search for Bobby. Armed with our flashlights, we initiated our search. Our collective effort led us to scan the areas just beyond the campsite and venture slightly into the surrounding forest. We searched for not even an hour when the night took a chilling turn. Donna's scream tore through the stillness, laden with pure terror. I will never forget that scream. Her trembling hand aimed the flashlight at something on the ground. In an instant, the entire group converged around her, a mixture of alarm and apprehension on our faces. There on the ground was a small pool of blood with what appeared to be a severed thumb. Everyone was in shock. Mr. Harmadink spoke first and said, "Clearly a wild animal did this. It's not safe to be out here in the dark." We were then told to gather our things and sit on the bus until further notice. Mr. Harmadink ordered one of the chaperones to take the supply van to the military base and alert the authorities. About a half an hour later, the Air Force Security Police with military K-9 units arrived, along with the local Sapang Bato authorities. They took statements from everyone. I was pulled aside in particular to be interrogated because I was the last person to see Bobby. I'm sure that it was not their intention, but I felt like I was a primary suspect. The whole place was swarming with military K-9 units. Those dogs were on edge, barking like crazy and straining against their leashes. I overheard a security policeman mentioning that they had caught a scent and the dogs were leading them deeper into the forest. It felt like a scene from a movie. Amidst the hustle, a master sergeant singled me out, and with Mr. Harmadink they pulled me aside. They wanted me to walk them through everything from the moment we arrived at Sapang Bato Forest. It was intense, having to recount every single detail while the situation was unfolding around us. The gravity of the moment was clear as day, and it was nerve-wracking. Out of nowhere, local news crews swarmed in with their cameras and microphones in hand. It was like a frenzy, with them shouting questions while the security police formed a barrier, trying to keep them away from the camp area. They were desperate for a story, and the chaos was intense. Mr. Harmadink seemed torn. He wanted to address the media and provide them with the facts. However, the master sergeant intervened, advising against it. The tension was thick as the master sergeant stepped in and informed the news crews that they should contact military public affairs for any updates related to this matter. Amidst the chaos of dealing with the news media, the chaperones quickly ushered us away to a quieter corner of the camp. It was like we were put on hold, not allowed to leave until the search and investigation wrapped up. The whole day felt like a hazy dream, a bizarre sequence of events unfolding before us as people scurried around the camp in a frenzy. However, one moment was crystal clear in my memory. As the day wore on, Bobby's family made their way to the camp. Their arrival was a poignant reminder of the gravity of the situation, and you could feel the weight of worry that hung in the air. Bobby's parents arrived, clearly distraught, and turned to me with a barrage of questions. They wanted to know every detail of what had happened, trying to piece together the sequence of events and perhaps find some clue about where Bobby could be. I found myself going through the same explanations I had given multiple times throughout the day, but there was a limit to what I could say. The truth was, I had no answers to give them. The uncertainty surrounding my best friend's whereabouts was as baffling to me as it was to them. I was willing to do anything to bring him back. That day, a deep sense of despair and emptiness settled over me, and I couldn't help but replay that night's events in my mind, wondering if there was something, anything, I could have done differently. For years, I carried the weight of blame, convinced that I could have changed the outcome somehow. It took time, but eventually, I came to realize that I was just a teenager then, and the burden I placed on myself was unfair. There truly was nothing more within my power to do. The search for Bobby persisted for weeks, an unyielding effort to find any trace of him. Despite their relentless search, no leads or clues materialized. Eventually, the search was called off, and Bobby's status remained in limbo, officially declared missing. His parents clung to hope, refusing to declare him deceased, a testament to their unwavering love and belief that he might still be out there somewhere. The part of the story that still baffles me, even after all these years, is what happened 2 decades after Bobby vanished. To this very day, I question my sanity. To this day, I am judged by others that question my sanity. But I don't care. I was there. After enlisting in the United States Air Force, I embarked on a career marked by dedication and service. Over the years, I found myself stationed in various overseas locations, fulfilling my duties with pride. Little did I anticipate the unexpected twist that lay ahead. Imagine my surprise when I was handed a unique and significant assignment. I was entrusted with the responsibility of leading a small military unit, tasked with the mission of collecting crucial information and assessing the viability of rebuilding Clark Air Force Base. It was a role that brought a mix of surprise and honor, underscoring the unpredictable nature of military service. While stationed there, I discovered that I had a significant amount of free time on my hands. Curiously, I found myself consistently drawn to Sapang Bato Forest, a place that held both memories and emotions. As weekends rolled around, I often headed there, using the time for fishing and to pay tribute to my dear friend, Bobby, whose memory lingered in those woods. But as fate would have it, the summer of 2004 marked the final occasion I would ever set foot in that forest again. It was still dark when I arrived at Abacan River in Sapang Bato Forest. It was particularly hot and humid. As I unloaded my fishing gear, I was all alone. I decided to go to the spot where we found Bobby's thumb. "Rest in peace, my friend," I said as I bowed my head in prayer. When I opened my eyes, I saw a huge ant mound on the ground. I snickered, thinking about the day Bobby tripped over one and had to dive into the river to get the ants off him. I made my way back to the river, cast my line, and sat in my chair. I poured some hot coffee from my thermos. Man, that coffee was good. Just then, the hair on the back of my neck stood on end. I felt that same feeling of being watched 20 years ago. My hands trembled as I took another sip of coffee. Out of nowhere, I heard a hoarse voice say, "Hello, Pewee." An Arctic chill ran down my spine as I realized that I truly was not alone. I put my hand on my hunting knife and slowly stood up. I turned around to see an earthy, weathered man with long, dusty gray hair and beard. He was naked and barefoot. I froze. When I was able to get the words out, I asked, "Can I help you, sir?" I just didn't know what to say. He stood before me, his gaze fixed on mine, and then he spoke, breaking the silence that had settled between us. "It's me, Bobby." In that moment, a surge of shock and adrenaline coursed through my veins, leaving me momentarily paralyzed. My voice finally found its way out, and I managed to stammer, Where have you been all this time, and how do I know it's you?" Bobby slowly raised his bony, thumbless hand. "Pee-wee, I destroyed their home, and for this they took me. You have to leave now. They are watching you." That was all I had to hear. I tripped over my chair as I dashed for my truck. My legs were jelly. I left everything. I looked behind me as I started the engine. Just then, a swarm of little naked people began surrounding Bobby. They were very dark and about the size of toddlers in height. They engulfed Bobby like a cloud and disappeared into the forest. I got home without any incidents. I could not sleep for days. I didn't tell anyone for a while because I just wasn't sure that this was even real. No one would believe me anyway, and I might be admitted into a psych ward. Well, that is all I have to say. I've never set foot there again and never will. I don't know what those little people were or who he was referring to, but this will forever be etched in my mind. There are some strange, unexplainable things in the world. That is all I have to say. Thanks for watching this nightmare. Please like and subscribe for more unique and horrifying stories.